Hi everybody, welcome to Live Blogger. I have combined all the videos in the pop-up design series into this single long video so that it's easy for you to follow. Now in this video, we are basically going to create this pop-up right here using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So here we can see we have this skip timer over here. And after it goes to 0 seconds, we can go ahead and skip. And this is also responsive. So if I just decrease the width of the browser window, this is how it looks on a mobile device. So this is what we're going to design in this video. And I will also leave the link of the source code in the description. And in the end, I'll also show you how to add this to your Blogger website. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, so here I have created this folder called Popup Add, and I just opened it with VS Code. Now in this we already have a folder called Images where we have these images which we're going to use in our project. Now first of all, let's go ahead and start creating the necessary files. So let's click on New File and let's create an HTML file. I'll just name it index.html, and let's also create a CSS file. Let's name it style.css, and we'll also create a JavaScript file. So let's name it main.js. Let's start with the index.html file. Now in VS Code you have the shortcut where you can just press exclamation and press tab, and you'll have this basic HTML5 code. Alright, let's link our CSS file over here. So I'll just type link, and here in the href I'll just type style.css, and we'll also link our JavaScript file over here in the body. So let's type script:/src, and here I'll just type main.js. Now first of all, let's add this dummy content. So we have a heading and we have some paragraphs. So for that, let's create a division with the class of page content. Now this will be the content that the page already has, but here we are creating this dummy content so that we can test the scroll. So first let's create an h1. I'll just type heading of the page, and let's add some paragraphs. So I'll just type p to create a paragraph tag, and in VS Code you have the shortcut where you can just type lorem, and you can type the number of words. So if I just type 30 and press tab, you will have 30 words of random text. Let's add one more paragraph, and let's type lorem 50, and we have 50 words of random text. I'll just copy this and paste it a couple more times. Alright, that's basically it with the dummy content. Now let's open this in our browser and let's see how it looks. So I have this extension installed called Live Server. Now if you have this installed, then you can just right click over here in the HTML and click on Open with Live Server. And now we can see that our content is displayed over here in the browser. Now let's start with the HTML of this pop-up. So let's go back to our HTML and let's go outside this page content division. Now for the pop-up, we'll create a division with the class of pop-up container to contain all these elements. So let's create a division with the class of pop-up container. Now if you take a look at the pop-up, we can see that we also have this overlay over the content of the page. So we have this dark background. So for that, let's create a division with the class of pop-up overlay outside this pop-up container division. So let's create a division with the class of pop-up overlay, and in that we will have this pop-up container division. Right now in the pop-up container division, we need to have two sections. We have the left section where we have the image and these two shapes over here, and then we have this content where we have the text, the skip button and this button. So let's go back and let's create a division with the class of left, and we'll also create a division with the class of right. Now in the left we need to have these three images. We have this image right here, then we have the next image, and then we have the main image over here. So let's create an img tag and let's type images /, and we have these images over here. Let's select bg2, which is this image right here. And let's create one more img tag and let's type images /bg1.png. And then lastly we have the main image. So let's type img, and in the src I'll just type images /, and it is called heroimage.png. Now if you go back to our browser, here we can see these are all the images of our design. Right now let's design the right section where we have all this content. So inside the right division, first of all let's add the skip button. So let's create a division with the class of skip button, and in that we will have some text. So let's type skip in, and we'll have 5 seconds. and we will change the seconds dynamically using JavaScript. Alright, the next thing we need to have is this text right here, live blogger. So for that, let's create a paragraph and we'll give it a class of logo, and let's type live blogger. And then after that we need to have this heading. So for that, let's create an h2 and let's give it a class of popup heading. And here we need to type design course. And then we need to have another paragraph for this text right here. So let's create a paragraph and let's give it a class of description. And I'll just copy this text and let's paste it over here. And the last thing we need to have is this button. So let's create an anchor tag. This is basically a link. So when we click on this button, we need to get to a page. So for that, let's create an anchor tag, and here I'll just type hash for now. You can add the link of your page over here. And let's also add a class, and let's give it a class of button. And here I'll just type visit site. Right now we can see all the elements are displayed over here. We have the images and all this text over here. And here we also have this anchor tag, and we'll style it to make it look like a button. Now the last thing we will do in this video is add the link of the font. So here I'm in fonts.google.com, and the font that we need is called Railway. So let's search for the font. Let's type Railway. And this is the font. So let's click on it. And we need to have two styles. We need to have the regular version, and we also need to have this bold version. And I think for the button we have a semi-bold version. So let's get these three styles. So let's select regular 400, and we also need to select semi-bold, and then lastly we need to select this bold 700. Right now let's click on this button called view selected families, and if we scroll down we can see that we have the link that we can add into our HTML. So let's copy this link from here, and let's go back to our HTML, and in the head section I'll just paste the link of the font. Right, so that's basically it with the HTML of our design. Right here I'm in the source code of our design, and we have already linked our CSS file over here. So let's start with the CSS. So if we scroll down in the HTML, we can see that we have this division with the class of popup overlay, and in that we have the popup container. So first of all, let's style this popup overlay. So let's go to our style.css file, and let's type .popup overlay. And first of all, let's set the background color to RGBA, and we'll set the color to black, but we'll have a little bit of opacity. So let's tap 0.4 for the alpha value, and let's set the position of the overlay to fixed, and we'll set the left position to 0 and the top position to 0, and we'll set the height to 100 viewport height and also the width to 100%. And let's go back to our design. And now we can see that the overlay is displayed over here. We can see that we have this dark overlay over the content of our website. Now if you want to make it a little bit darker, you can just go ahead and change the alpha. So if I just change this to 0.8, this is how it will look. So let's change it back to 0.4. Now before writing the CSS of the popup container, let's add some CSS to this post content. So if you go back to our index.html file, here we can see that we have this division with the class of page content. So let's style that real quick. So here I'll just type page content, and let's set the max width to 700 pixels, and let's set the font family to Roboto sans serif, and we'll also bring it to the center. So let's type margin 0 for top and bottom and auto for left and right, and let's also add some line height to these paragraphs. So here we can see inside the page content we have this paragraph. So let's type page content P, and let's set the line height to 2, and now we can see that we have the content styled correctly. Right now let's focus on the popup container. So here we have this division with the class of popup container. Let's style that. So here I'll just type popup container. Now we want the popup container also to be in the center of the screen. So for that, let's set the position to fixed, and let's just add a background color to see what is the width and the height. Right, so let's bring it to the center. Now to bring it to the center, we have to type left 50% and top 50%. Now we can see that it starts from the center. Now we have to bring this exactly in the center. So it should not start from the center, it should be in the center. So for that we have to type transform, translate, and we have to set the x and the y axis to negative 50%. And now we can see that it is exactly in the center. Now let's also set the font family. So let's type font family, and let's set the font family to Railway and sans serif, and we'll set the color of all the text to white. And let's also add a padding of 12 pixels top and bottom and 0 for left and right. And let's also add a box shadow. So let's type box shadow, and let's set the values to 0, 6 pixels, 55 pixels, negative 10 pixels, RGBA, 0, 0, 0 and 0.7. And let's remove this background color. Now here we can see we don't have any background color. Now we have to set this image as the background color. So let's go back, and here we'll just type background image, and let's set it to URL. And we have the images inside the images folder, so let's type images / and the image is called bg.png. And now let's go back, and here we can see that the image is being used as the background. Now we don't want this image to be tiled, we want it to be stretched across this entire division. So for that let's type background size, and let's set it to cover. And now we can see that the image looks alright. Right now the next thing we will do is we will set the box sizing to border box for all the elements, so that we have the correct width and height for all the elements. So here we'll just type popup container, and also all the elements inside that. So let's type popup container asterisk, and here we'll just type box sizing and set it to border box. Right now the next thing we will do is style these images. So here we can see we have all these images one below the other. So for that we will set the position of the images to absolute. So since we have the position of fixed over here in the popup container, all the images will be positioned relative to this popup container. So let's type popup container left, and let's go back to our HTML, and we have these 3 images over here. So what we will do is we will add some classes to these images. So for the first image let's type class, and let's set it to bg2, and for the second image let's type class equals bg1, and then for the hero image let's type class equals hero image. Right now let's go back and let's target all the images first of all, and let's set the position to absolute. And here we can see all the images are one below the other. And now let's set the bottom position to 0. So here we can see that the images start from here. So let's go back and let's type bottom 0. Right now we can see that the images start from here. Right now let's add some left position to the bottom images. So let's type popup container left, and for the first bg we have a class called bg1. So for that let's type left, and let's set it to 80 pixels. And now we can see that the image is displayed over here. Now let's also target the image called bg2. So let's type popup container left bg2, and let's set the left position to 64 pixels. And now we can see that the third image is also displayed over here. Right now let's style this right division. So if we go back to our HTML, here we can see we have this division with the class of right, and in that we have all these elements. So first of all let's target this right division. So here I'll just type popup container right, and first of all let's set the width to 540 pixels, and let's add a padding to the left so that all the elements are shifted to the right. So let's type padding left, and let's set it to 250 pixels. And we also add an overall padding. So here before this I'll just type padding, and let's set it to 16 pixels. Right now let's style the skip button. So for the skip button we have a division with the class of skip button. So here I'll just type popup container skip button, and let's set it to position absolute, and let's set the top position to 4 pixels and also the right position to 4 pixels, and let's add a background color, and let's set it to black. And we'll also add a padding of 2 pixels top and bottom and 6 pixels left and right. And let's set the font size to 14 pixels. And we'll also set the cursor to pointer. So let's type cursor pointer. So that's it with the skip button. Now let's style this logo. So if you go back to the HTML, here we can see we have this paragraph with the class of logo. So let's type popup container p.logo, and let's set the font size to 13 pixels. And let's set the color to FEBDFF. And let's set the text transform to uppercase. And we'll also set a margin bottom. And let's set it to 4 pixels. Right now let's style this heading. So for the heading we have a class called popup heading, and it is an h2. So let's target that over here. Let's type popup container h2.popup heading. And let's set the font size to 30 pixels. And let's set the text transform to uppercase. And we'll also set a margin of 0. Right now let's style this paragraph. So for the paragraph we have a p tag with a class of description. So let's target that over here. Let's type popup container p.description. And let's set the font size to 15 pixels. And we'll also set the line height to 1.8. Right now the last thing we need to do is style this button. So for the button we have an anchor tag with a class of button. Let's just change this to visit button. Right now let's go back to our CSS, and let's type popup container visit button, and let's set the background color to white, and let's remove the underline. So let's type text decoration, and let's set it to none, and let's set the font size to 15 pixels, and let's set the font weight to bold, and let's set the color of the text to black, and let's also add a padding, and let's set the padding to 8 pixels top and bottom and 24 pixels left and right. Let's also add a margin top. So let's type margin top, and let's set it to 8 pixels. And the margin top is not being added because the anchor tags are inline elements by default. So we have to change it to an inline block. So let's type display of inline block. And now we have the margin being added. Alright, so that's basically it with the CSS of our pop-up. What we want to have is that when we scroll down on our page, we should have this displayed over here, and we should also have this skip counter over here. And after 5 seconds we should be able to skip this ad, and if I click on skip we can see that it goes away. Alright, here's the source code, and we already have the main.js file which will have the JavaScript code, and we have already linked the main.js file over here in the HTML. Now the first thing we will do is we will reference all the elements that we need to have in the JavaScript from the HTML. So we need to have the reference of the pop-up overlay, we need to have the reference of the skip button, and we'll also have the reference of this visit button. So let's go to our main.js file, and let's type const popup overlay equals document.querySelector, and we have a class called popup overlay. And after that let's reference the skip button. So let's type const skip button equals document.querySelector, and the skip button is inside the popup container, and we have a class called skip button. And then we'll also reference the visit button. So let's type const visit button equals document.querySelector popup container visit button. Right now what we need to do is when we scroll down we need to display this pop-up. So for that we need to add an event listener to the window. So let's go back and let's type window.addEventListener, and we're going to listen to the scroll event, and let's create an arrow function over here, and here we need to write the code to display the overlay. So what we will do is we will add a class called active to the pop-up overlay when we want to display it, and we will remove the active class when we don't want it to be displayed. So let's go to a style.css file, and let's scroll up, and let's go to the pop-up overlay. So here by default we will set the opacity to 0, And we'll also add a transition so that we will have smooth animation. So let's type transition of all to 700 milliseconds ease. And now when we have the active class, we will set the opacity to 1. So let's type popup overlay dot active, and here we'll just type opacity and set it to 1. Now if we go back to our design, we can see that the overlay is not being displayed. And if we add the active class, so here if I just type active, and we can see that the overlay is displayed over here, and we also have the pop-up container displayed because it is inside the pop-up overlay division. Now when we add the active class to the pop-up overlay, we'll also add some animation to this pop-up container. So if you go back to the original design, and if I scroll down, we can see that we have a little bit of animation for this pop-up container. So let's go back to our CSS and let's go to the pop-up container, and here let's type popup overlay dot active. So when we have the active class inside the pop-up overlay, we need to add some styles to the pop-up container. So let's type pop-up container, and by default here we will set the opacity to 0, and we'll also add a transition so that we'll have smooth animation, and we'll set the transition to all 700 milliseconds ease. And by default we will also set the pointer events to none so that the elements cannot be clicked. So let's type pointer events to none, and we'll also bring this pop-up container down a little bit by default. So here for the second axis, which is the y-axis, let's type calc, and we'll type 50% plus 50 pixels. And now let's go over here and let's type transform translate, and we'll set it back to negative 50%, and we'll also set the opacity to 1, and let's also set the pointer events to auto. Right now let's go back to our main.js file and let's continue with our JavaScript. Now here we will check whether the scroll value is greater than 100. So let's type if window dot scroll y, and if it is greater than 100, then we need to add the active class to the pop-up overlay. So let's type popup overlay dot class list dot add active. And now let's go back to our website, and first of all let's remove the active class from the HTML. Right now let's scroll down, and we can see that the pop-up container is displayed over here, and if I refresh this page it goes back, and let's scroll down once again and it is being displayed over here. Right now let's add the functionality of the skip button. So let's go back to our JavaScript, and here let's add an event listener to the skip button. So let's type skip button dot add event listener, and let's listen for the click event, and let's create an arrow function over here, and we just need to remove the active class from the pop-up overlay. So let's type popup overlay dot class list dot remove active, and now let's go back, and if I refresh this page, if you scroll down we have the pop-up displayed over here, and if I click on the skip button it goes back. So everything is working alright till now. Now we need to add some more functionality over here. We need to add the timer of the skip button, and we also need to store a cookie inside the browser so that this ad will not be displayed every time the user comes to this page. So let's go back and we will add this code inside a function because we have multiple things to do. So let's go ahead and create a function to display the ad. We'll create a function called show ad, and let's cut this code from here, and let's paste it over here inside the show ad function, and here I'll just call the function. So I'll just type show ad, and we'll do the same for the skip button. So let's type const skip ad, and let's cut this code from here and paste it over here, and here I'll just call the skip ad function. Let's go back to our website and let's see whether it works alright, and everything is working alright. Now the next thing we will do is add the timer. So what we need to do is we need to create a variable to store the remaining time. So let's create a variable called remaining time, and by default we will set it to 5, and we'll also create a boolean variable called allowed to skip. So let's type let allowed to skip equals false by default, and we'll also create a variable for the timer. So let's type popup timer. Right now let's go over here to the show ad function and let's write the code to create the timer. So let's type popup timer, equals set interval, and we'll set the interval to 1000 milliseconds, which is 1 second. And every time we pass 1 second, we need to decrement the remaining time by 1. So let's type remaining time minus minus to decrement it by 1. And if the remaining time is less than 0, then we need to set the allowed to skip variable to true. So let's type if remaining time is less than 0, let's type allowed to skip equals true. And here in the event listener for the skip button, we need to add an if condition. So here let's type if allowed to skip, then we will call this function. Right now, first of all, let's print this remaining time inside the console, and let's see whether everything works alright. So here I'll just type console.log remaining time, and let's go back to our website and let's open the console. Right now let's scroll down, and we have the remaining time displayed over here, but it is running too fast. That's because we also have this scroll event added. Now since we are scrolling, we have this show add function called again and again whenever we scroll even 1 pixel. So what we will do is we will remove the event listener when we call this show add function, and I will also create a new function called start timer, and in that we will call the show add function. So let's type const start timer, and I'll just delete this, and here I'll just type start timer. And here in the start timer function, let's go ahead and copy this code. So I'll just copy this if condition from here, and let's paste it over here. And here I'll just type show add, and here we'll also remove the event listener. So let's type window.remove event listener and scroll and start timer. Right now let's go back to our browser and let's see whether this works. So let's scroll down, and we can see that the timer is displayed over here, and if I skip right now, it doesn't skip. But if I wait for 0 seconds and if I click on skip now, it skips. But we can see that this timer is going on, so we need to stop this timer. So here inside this if condition, let's type clear interval, and we'll add the name of the interval over here, popup timer. And now let's go back and let's scroll down, and we have the timer displayed over here. Let's see whether it stops after 0, and we can see that the timer has stopped. Now we need to show this timer value over here in this text. So let's go back and let's do that. Here I'll just type skip button dot inner HTML equals, and let's use backticks, and let's type skip in, and let's add the variable over here. So the variable is called remaining time, S for seconds. And when we are less than 0 seconds, we need to set the text to just skip. So let's type skip button dot inner HTML equals skip. Right now let's go back and let's test it out. So here we can see that the timer is displayed over here in the skip button, and when we hit 0, it goes to the skip text, and if I click on skip, it disappears. Now if I refresh this page and if I scroll down once again, we can see that the timer and the pop-up is displayed once again over here. Now we don't want this to happen. We want to display this pop-up once every specific period of time. So for that we will use cookies to store the information inside the browser. So let's go back and let's create a function to create the cookie. So the cookie will be created when we click on the skip button. So here in the skip add function, let's call a variable called create popup cookie, and let's create the function over here. So let's type const create popup cookie. Now to create a cookie, you have to type document.cookie, and we have to provide some string over here. So first of all, we need to provide the name of the cookie. So we'll just name it popup cookie, and we need to set it to a value. So let's type equals true, and the next thing you have to do is after semicolon we need to provide the expiry date. Now for that we'll create a variable, so we'll just call it expires, and after that you need to type path equals /, Right now let's create this expires variable. So first of all, let's create a variable called expires days. And here you can set the number of days. So I'll just set it to 30. So this cookie will be stored for 30 days inside the browser. And now we need to create a variable. So let's call it date, and we need to set it to new date. Now let's set this date to 30 days after the current date. So for that we need to type date dot set time, and in parentheses you have to type date dot get time, which gets the current time, plus, and here you have to enter the number of days. So we have already created this variable over here. So let's type expires days times 24 hours times 60 minutes times 60 seconds times 1000 milliseconds. So now the date has been set to 30 days after the current date. Right now let's create this expires variable. So let's type let expires equals, and it should also be in key value pairs. So let's type expires equals, and let's concatenate the date, and we need to convert it to UTC string. So let's type to UTC string. Alright, so that's it with creating the cookie. Now let's go back to our browser and we will check whether the cookies are being added. So let's go over to application, and here we can see inside cookies we have the website, and our cookie should be stored over here. So let's go back and let's scroll down, and we have the skip button being displayed over here. Let's click on the skip button, and let's go back to the inspector, and here we can see that our cookie is displayed over here. We have the pop-up cookie, and it is stored over here. Now the last thing we need to do is we need to check whether this cookie is available in the browser before showing the ad. So let's go back to our JavaScript and let's scroll down, and here before adding the event listener to the window, we will check whether we have the cookie available. So let's tap if, and for this we will use a regular expression. So I can just copy this code and just add it over here. So we'll type exclamation, which means if the cookie is not available, document.cookie.match. So here you can see this code. You have to copy and paste this exact code over here and just add the cookie name over here. So if you scroll up, we can see that the cookie name is called Popup cookie. So I have added that over here. Just change that and everything else will be the same. Right now let's go back to our browser, and we already have this cookie over here, and let's refresh this page, and if we scroll down we don't have the pop-up displayed. So since we have the cookie, the pop-up is not being displayed over here. Let's just delete the cookie and let's see whether we have the pop-up displayed once again. So here inside cookies we have this cookie. Let's go ahead and delete this, and now let's go ahead and refresh this page. Now let's scroll down, and now we can see we have the pop-up displayed over here, and we have the skip timer over here. And if I click on the skip button, we will have the pop-up stored in the browser once again. And now if I refresh this page, we will not have the pop-up displayed, and the pop-up will be removed after 30 days from the browser. So that's basically how you can add the functionality of this pop-up using JavaScript. Now I can just go ahead and delete this console.log. Right, here's the source code, and let's go to the HTML file, and the first thing we will do is we will add a different image for the mobile version. So here we can see we have this hero image, and this is the image that we see over here. Now for the mobile version we will have a different image. So I already have this image saved over here in the images folder called hero image small. So let's add that image over here. So I'll just create one more img tag, and here in the src I'll just type images / hero image small, and let's also give it a class. So let's type class and let's set it to hero image small. So here we can see we have the image displayed over here. Now we have this skip button and this animation being played again and again. So I'll just go over here to this line of code and I'll just disable the JavaScript for now, and here I'll just add the active class. Right, now let's continue styling this. So let's go to our style.css file, and the first thing we will do is we will hide this image from the desktop version. So let's scroll down over here and let's target the class. Let's type popup container hero image small, and let's set the display to none. Right, now let's add a media query. So let's type @media, and let's set the max width to 560 pixels, and let's see whether it is working. So let's select everything and set display to none. And we can see when we are less than 560 pixels, we don't have anything being displayed. And if we increase the width, we have the pop-up displayed. So the media query is working alright. Right, let's remove this code from here and let's start writing the CSS. The first thing we will do is we will just hide all these images from here because these are the images of the desktop version. So let's type pop-up container left, and we have an image called bg1, and let's add a comma and let's type pop-up container left bg2, and we also have one more image called hero image. So let's type pop-up container left hero image, and let's set the display to none. Alright, now the next thing we will do is we will display this hero image small at the top, and then we'll have all this text at the bottom. And here we can see we have added some padding on the left in the desktop version. So if we scroll up, if you go to the right division over here, we can see we have added a padding left of 250 pixels. So let's scroll down and let's target the right division. So let's type pop-up container right, and let's set the padding to 16 pixels. And now we can see we have the correct padding. Let's also add a width. So let's set the width to 300 pixels. Alright, now let's display this hero image small. So let's type pop-up container left hero image small, and let's set the display to block. And here we can see that the image is being displayed. Let's also set the width. So let's set the width to 100%. Now here we can see that the image is on top of our content. So that's because if you scroll up, we can see that for all the images we have set the position to absolute. So let's go ahead and set the position to relative. So let's type pop-up container left and hero image small, and let's set the position to relative. And now we can see we have the image at the top and all the content at the bottom. Now we have some padding at the top, so let's remove that as well. So the padding is for the pop-up container. So if you scroll up, here we can see for the pop-up container we have a padding of 12 pixels. So let's remove the padding. So here I'll just have pop-up container padding and set it to 0. Now we can also change the padding of this right division over here. So let's set a padding top and let's set it to 4 pixels, and I think that looks alright. So that's it with the responsive version of our pop-up. And if I increase the width of the browser, this is the other pop-up. If I decrease the width, we have this pop-up displayed over here. Now the last thing I want to do over here is add a little bit of animation for these two images down here. So let's go back to our CSS and let's scroll up. Here we can see we have these two selectors, bg1 and bg2. So these are the two images over here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bring these images to the left a little bit by default. So let's type transform translate x, and let's set it to -20 pixels. And let's also add a transition so that we have smooth animation, and let's set it to all 1700 milliseconds ease. And let's copy these 2 lines of code and let's paste it down here for the second BG. And for the second one we will have a little bit of transition delay. So let's type transition delay and let's set it to 600 milliseconds. And now when we add the active class to the pop-up overlay, we'll just bring these images to the default position. So let's scroll up, and here we have the pop-up overlay active. So here let's type pop-up overlay dot active left bg1, and also let's select the bg2. Let's type pop-up overlay dot active left bg2, and let's set the transform translate x back to 0. Right, now let's see whether this works. So let's go back to our HTML and let's remove this active class from here, and let's uncomment this JavaScript code. So now let's refresh this page and let's scroll down, and here we can see we have the animation for these two images and everything is working alright. So that's basically how you make this pop-up responsive. Right, here I'm in the dashboard of my Blogger website, and if I go to theme, we can see that I'm using this theme called Contempo Light, which comes by default with Blogger. Now we can add this pop-up inside a post or a page, or you can even add it inside your whole website. So if you want to add it inside a post, you can just go ahead and open the post and just go to the HTML view and here you can go ahead and create a style tag. So if you just type style and close this over here, you can add the CSS inside the style tag, and then you can add the HTML after that, and then after that you can add the JavaScript inside a script tag like this. So this is how you can add inside a post or a page. But in this video I'll show you how to add this inside your whole website. So for that you have to go over here to theme and click on this arrow and click on edit HTML. Now here you need to add the HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So first of all, let's add the CSS. So let's scroll down and let's find the CSS of the theme. So this is all the CSS of the theme. So let's go to the end of the CSS. Now this is where the theme CSS ends. So let's make some space over here and let's add a comment. I'll just type Popup add. And let's go to the source code, and I will leave the link of the source code in the description. So let's go to a style.css file and let's copy all these CSS from here, and let's go back and paste it over here. So all the CSS has been copied. Now let's go ahead and copy and paste the HTML. So let's scroll down and let's go to the end of the body tag, and here just before the body ends, let's add the HTML. So let's go back to our source code and let's go to the index.html file, and if you scroll down, here is the HTML for our pop-up, and here we can see we have this pop-up overlay, and then we have this pop-up container division, and in that we have the images on the left side and we have the text content on the right side. Now you can go ahead and add your own images over here. Just change the src to your image links, and you can also go ahead and change this text over here. So we have skip in this many seconds, and we have the name of the website, and we have all these things over here. You can go ahead and change these to whatever you want. And then lastly we have this visit site link over here, and you can just go ahead and change this hash to the link of your page. So when someone clicks on the visit site button, they'll be taken to that page. And then if you go to the main.js file, we have all this JavaScript over here, and here we have the remaining time, which is 5 seconds. So right now the ad will skip in 5 seconds. Now you can go ahead and change this to whatever you want. If you just change this to 10, the ad will skip in 10 seconds. And then if you scroll down, we have the create pop-up cookie function over here, and here you can enter the number of days. So I have set it to 30 for now. You can just change this to whatever number of days you want. And if you scroll down, we also have this scroll event listener for the window, and here we are checking whether the scroll amount is greater than 100. Now you can change this to whatever you want. Right now if you scroll past 100 pixels, the ad will be shown. You can change this to whatever you want. Right now let's go back to our HTML file and let's copy the HTML. So let's copy from here till here, and let's go back to our theme code and let's paste the HTML over here, and let's also paste the JavaScript. So let's create a script tag for that, and let's go back and let's go to the main.js file and let's copy all this code from here and let's paste it over here inside the script tag. Now here we can see we have some problems in the code. So that's because we have this less than symbol over here. Now since the theme language is XML, you have to change this to %LT semicolon, and then everything will be alright. Right now the last thing we need to do is add the images. So right now the images source are set to images / and the image name. But in our website we don't have this images folder. So for that we have to first of all upload the image somewhere and get the link of the images and paste it over here. Now for uploading the image, I'm using this service called cloudinary.com. So you can just go to this website, create a free account and log into the account, and just go to media library, and here let's click on upload and let's click on browse, and here we have all the images in our project. So let's select all of these and click on open. And here we can see all the images have been uploaded. Now let's go ahead and get the links of these images and paste it inside our theme code. So the first link we need to have is the bg2 image. So let's go over here to Cloudinary, and this is the bg2 link. So let's click on this button to copy the URL, and let's paste it over here inside the source. Right now let's go back and let's copy the link of the bg1 image. So let's copy this and let's paste it over here. Right now let's copy this hero image link. So this is the hero image link, so let's copy this and let's paste it over here. And then lastly we have the hero image small, so let's go back and let's copy this and let's paste it over here. And then lastly we have this image for the background, so let's copy the link and we have to paste it inside the CSS. So let's scroll up, and here we can see for the pop-up container we have set the background image to this URL, so let's replace this with the current URL. Right now let's save this and let's see whether this works. And let's open our website, so let's click on view blog. And here we have the website displayed, so let's scroll down a little bit and let's see whether we have the pop-up being displayed. And here we can see that the pop-up is being displayed, but it is below all the other elements in our website. So we need to add a z index. So let's go back to our code and let's go to the CSS. And here let's go to the pop-up overlay. And we actually don't need to have these two selectors, so these were for testing. So let's delete these. And here for the pop-up overlay, let's set a z index and let's set it to, let's try 700 and let's save it. And let's go back to our website and let's refresh this page and let's scroll down, and now we can see we have the pop-up displayed and we also have the timer and everything is working alright. Now let's click on the skip button and we can see that the pop-up is hidden. Now if we scroll down again, the pop-up will not be displayed. Even if we reload this page and if we scroll down, the pop-up will not be displayed because the pop-up is stored inside a cookie. So if you right click over here and click on inspect, and if you go over here to application and if you go to the cookies, here inside the website, if you scroll down, we can see that we have this cookie called pop-up cookie, and as long as this cookie is inside our browser, the pop-up will not be displayed. And if I just delete this cookie, and now if I refresh this page and if I scroll down, we will have the pop-up displayed once again. So that's basically how you can add a pop-up to your Blogger website. Now I will leave the link of the source code in the description of this video, and if you have any doubts you can ask in the comments below, and if you like this video please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel to get the latest video updates. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.